If you teach kindergarten art, try to plan ahead so that your drawing rack is not so full that your little kindergartners cannot reach up and put their artwork on the drawing rack by themselves. If we haven't met before, my name is Jarvis, and I'm a K-6 elementary art teacher, and I teach at a Title I school just outside of Washington, D.C. In this video about kindergarten art, I'm going to be breaking down what to do when the students are working on their artwork, how to get those kindergartners to clean up in the art room successfully, and also how to get them lined up quietly and headed out the door back to their homerooms. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Does that girl seriously have 2 of those gigantic drawing racks? Well, the answer would be technically no, but here's how I came about the second one. This week is the week before a holiday, and I just had a ton of projects going on. My drawing rack was completely filled to the top, and I had another class coming in, a first grader, so a little tiny artist, that needed to do printmaking, and they were not going to be able to reach the top of that drawing rack. I was looking for some other solutions, trying to get really creative, and then I remembered there's an empty art room right next door to me with that empty drying rack. So I borrowed it, and now I never want to give it back. I mentioned that we are in a week before a break. We're only going to school 2 days this week because it is Thanksgiving, hence the little turkey art shirt. This I got on Etsy, and I'll try to link it in the description down below. This week, my kindergartners are working on creating turkeys in disguise. This is a lesson that I have over on TPT, but I set up a little turkey store here so the students can independently come and get the materials that they need. I don't have my students get all of the materials here. Many materials I will set up and put at their seat. I am super lucky. I have a 15-minute transition window right before kindergarten. Now, before you think that that sounds just completely luxurious, kindergarten is usually my 4th class in a row. So that 15 minutes is my quick bathroom break, drink break, snack break, and resetting the room for kindergarten. So it is pretty much a manic mad dash. I will put artwork out on their tables, and I have their papers already labeled with an Avery mailing label. So I use these name tags for all of my classes, but I definitely would recommend that you use them with kindergarten. It's a pre-printed label that I create where I have their seat number, their name, their homeroom teacher's name. It just keeps me organized. It allows me to set out that artwork so that the place where they sit is marked. Because I don't know about your kindergartners, but mine, it takes them a really long time before they learn like where they sit. In fact, at the beginning of the year, I will call out a name, Ryan, please come over and sit down right here in your spot, and place them right where their artwork is. Even though it already has that name on there, they're not able to identify their name and, correctly sit in that right spot. As the year goes on, so we're about midway through the year, I would take my students that are on the carpet and dismiss them, maybe by dividing them in groups. Maybe if you're wearing red, walk back to your seat, or divide them up between the boys and the girls, going back to their seats. Doing that just for traffic so that there isn't like a mad stampede back to their seats. As they're going to sit down, I typically will have them procure one item to get started. So I might have paper at their tables and glue, but I would have them go and get the scissors. Now in my classroom, I always keep the scissors in the same spot. I wouldn't move it into this store. My scissors are in an over the door shoe holder, and I would do a lesson where I teach the kindergartners exactly how to walk over and get the scissors, how to hold the scissors, how to walk those scissors back to their seat. And then I would allow them to get started once they are sitting down. If you're curious about how I teach kindergartners about scissors, I've got an entire video about managing the scissors. If you're wondering how on earth you could set up things in a little store situation or place things out on their table when you've got 0 minutes of transition time, I hear you. Most of my classes are just back to back. And I have a whole video about managing the transitions that you're gonna wanna check out. That's gonna have tips and tricks to help you when you've got a really tight time crunch. I love the idea of having them get some of the items, maybe even like midway through the project, so that they can add things on to their project. So for the turkey project, I'm placing the background paper and the turkey and the face parts for the turkey, so like the eyes and the beak and the wattle, at their seats, along with a little bottle of glue. And we're using that glue that is in those bottles that have a little brush built all the way in. This is from the brand Colorations. I really, really like this. I will definitely link it in the description down below. But those glue bottles, they're in a video that I've made about my 10 favorite kindergarten art supplies. When my kids are done gluing down that turkey and making the face, they complete a little shopping list about what they want to purchase in the turkey mall or the turkey store, and then they come over and read the signs, and then they can choose what they can take. So I'm teaching them that they only can take 2 buttons. We're talking about this before they ever move out of their seats and come over to get these materials. But it's creating a sense of independence for students. As the year goes on, I'm teaching them where to get materials like the scissors, pencils, markers, crayons, in the location where they always will be in my room. And I'm weaning them away as the year goes on from me doing a ton of setup to get them successful. And I'll do the same thing you'll see with the cleanup. So after you give your kindergartners directions and you send them back to their seat, you can't just set them free. Kindergartners are really going to need you to do a lot of referring back to your sample, to the steps in the process, to, your little dot, not a lot, and your reminders about what they need to be doing. Especially if you've gone over lots of things, you're going to need to chunk it and break it down. Here's what you should be doing first. Here's what you should be doing right now. When I have my students painting, we talk a lot about how to care for the paintbrushes. And I have a little paintbrush that I made named Pedro. And when they start painting, he will go around and check whose paintbrush is having a good hair day and reinforce to those that are giving a bad hair day what they need to do. So there's going to be a lot of checking in with your kindergarten artist. Speaking of, if you've got an Apple Watch, you're going to get like all your steps in during kindergarten art. This is not a time when you're just sitting down in a chair, luxuriating. You are definitely going to be on the move, and kindergartners are going to keep you on their toes. They're going to make mistakes. So be really realistic about your expectations on what they're going to do and what they can do. Your projects should really be focused on the process of how you're making the art and not so much on the final project looking just like yours. It doesn't mean that you're not a good teacher if they don't have a really successful end project. What makes you a successful teacher is if those students had fun and if they've learned how to use those materials correctly, if they've learned some new techniques of how to use those materials. Those are the things you should be striving for with your kindergarten artist. When they make mistakes, you really want to have a fun, carefree attitude of, oops, that is just part of learning. You can give them chances to try again. You can say, oh, next time, let's make sure we're not running over to the sink, or go back and try again. But you really want to create an environment where they feel free to make mistakes, ask you questions, and learn, because many of them are exploring these materials for the very first time. So what do I do with kindergartners when they finish their artwork? Well, sometimes, as you know, kindergartners will announce, I'm done, even when they're not, well before you expect them to be saying that. So what I like to do is ring a bell and ask students to put their hands up and their eyes up. I like to restate the objectives. We're creating a painting. When we paint the entire paper. We don't want to have any white spots. I'll look to see, does that student just naturally take those directions and go back in and add things to their artwork? Or do I need to go over and talk with that student and point out areas of the painting where I'm noticing could use a little bit more effort? Once a student has done their personal best, I have students carry their own artwork to the drying rack. They're responsible for taking their paintbrush and putting it in the paintbrush hot tub, which is just a bucket of big soapy water, and I keep it in the same spot each and every week. Students wash their own hands and they take their art shirt off and put it back in the art shirt bin. If I'm doing something really messy, when I'm doing printing, when I'm doing clay, glazing, paint, I often cover my tables because I've got those back-to-back classes. It just helps me with the transitions to make things a little bit easier. So on those really messy days, my students will move to the carpet as they finish. There I will have magnet tiles, books. I have some fun little drawing boards that students can use. This way, those students that are done, they're occupied, and I can focus my attention on the students that still need a little bit of help to finish and also on the cleanup efforts. I simply just then roll up the paper that's on the tables if I'm not just leaving it down for my next class. When I'm doing projects with the kindergartners where things are not as messy, let's say we're doing a collage, I would have students, as they finished, move their artwork to the appropriate place and then put their own scissors and glue and materials away. Then they would either be a sweeper or a wiper. So I keep the jobs very basic and I let them choose. A sweeper means that you go over and get a little handheld broom and you can sweep to your heart's delight. Every corner of the art room is open for business. Or they can be a wiper. I have students donate baby wipes at the beginning of the school year, and then students would use those to wipe the chairs and to wipe the tables. This keeps them pretty busy. If you do have students finish early and they are able to help another student in a productive way, that is something that I sometimes do at the kindergarten level, have them help a friend so that that friend can get finished. I do have a ketchup and pickle day where students can finish artwork, but for kindergarten students, that's really hard for them to have to finish up projects. So as much as possible, I try to have them finish all at the same time. On days that are not so messy, I might have students get a little piece of paper and some crayons and free draw if they finish early. Then as the class is cleaning up, I will give a signal. When the timer that I set at the beginning of the class goes off, that is when I stop my students by blinking the lights and I say macaroni and cheese and they say everybody freeze. I blink the lights to catch their attention, and then when we're freezing, I turn the lights off. Once everyone is frozen, we say we're not walking, we're not talking. In a minute, but not yet. And then I give those cleanup directions. I do my cleanup routine exactly the same every single week. I have a whole video breaking down my routine because I use this routine K through 6 in a separate video. So I'm going to be sure to link that down below. It is one you do not want to miss. With my kindergarten students, I introduced this idea of macaroni and cheese and freezing by using a cute little dance that I found on YouTube. So I'm going to link that video down below. And if you're introducing this in your art room, it's a really fun way to start that out. I will give very short cleanup directions to my kindergarten students. There are things like when we're painting as the teacher that I take care of. So I would put all the water cups onto a tray and carry them back myself to avoid any major spills and messes. So I move the paint, I move the water. Students are responsible for their own artwork, washing their hands, moving any art tools such as paintbrushes to the right spot. So I would give very short directions as what is expected to the kindergartners because they're kindergartners. They are going to be a one-track mind that they are ready to line up. So giving them like 1-2 things max to do, that's about all they can handle. Once they have those things done, I ask them to line up. As a student determines that they are done cleaning up, I have them begin to line up. My line has vinyl numbers that I purchased on Amazon, and the numbers are in order all around the perimeter of my room. If you watch my lining up video, you know that my upper grades, they have assigned line spots that go along with the seat that they sit in for art. In kindergarten, just get in line. Just stand on a number and you're good. To kind of end the cleanup and get the stragglers to the line, I will ring my bell and announce that everyone needs to move their feet to the number line. I will remind them at that time that if they have a wiper, they need to walk it to the trash can. If they have a broom, a little sweeper, they need to put that back. Once students are in the line, I will start a freeze game. Another thing you can do to get those students to line up is just do a simple countdown. I need everybody to walk and get into line in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. My students don't want to miss the game, so they do quickly line up. Now, the game that we play is something just really simple. It's called 1, 2, 3, freeze, okay? That's just what I call it. It's really just a statue game. So I'll give a clue like freeze like the Mona Lisa. 1, 2, 3, freeze. And then they just hold very still and they're not talking. We say sounds like would be like music. So they can't sound like what we're saying. They also can't move like what we're saying. That would be PE. In art, they're just doing looks like. So we're doing looks like the Mona Lisa. Once I select a student, they become it. The student that's it then comes into the middle of the room. And when I give the next clue, let's say it's stand like a flamingo, that student would be responsible for picking the next quiet student that becomes it. And the game just keeps continuing. So while this is happening, I am doing a quick sweep of the room to make sure we didn't leave any items behind. We don't have any messes left on tables. And the game really just runs itself. We will do the last person when we run out of time. They get the job of carrying the gold and silver paintbrush back to the class. The gold and silver paintbrush is a classroom management, whole class management system that I use. It is in a separate video, but you'll definitely want to check that out if you haven't seen it because kindergartners, they really like it. And the person that didn't get a turn, they were the last person that was it, but they didn't get a chance to pick somebody else. I let them always hold the brush. And then I give my instructional assistant my art support report, which is my note about anything that happened with the kindergartners during the art class and what was my response. So that's more my individual class management plan. We will ask the students then to freeze hip and lip and then have them phrase that way as they're walking silently out of the room. Let me tell you something. Once those kindergartners leave, you can take a deep breath because that is probably the hardest part of your day and it's over. Good luck teaching those kindergartners. And if you're interested in some kindergarten art lessons in a future video, make sure you leave me a comment down below and I'll see you in my next video.